Aloha and welcome to a new Ohana Packers Edition podcast, the podcast where two dudes from halfway across the world chat about everything green and gold. I'm Mike, and that's Iowa Joe. Today we are previewing Week 3, the Packers 2023 home opener. Joe, I figured we'd start with just the Wednesday practice updates. The good news is that Christian Watson returned, limited participant, but good to see him back out on the field. Hopefully that's a sign that he's ready to return as soon as this Sunday's game. And Aaron Jones, he stretched but did not come out with the team. Came out of Hudson Center. I believe that's the same thing he did on Friday. And Bakhtiari and Jenkins were both riding the bike on the side of practice. So and then both our edge dudes, Lucas Van Ness and Rashawn Gary, were both limited participants. So good that Lucas got out of the game without too bad of an injury. I think they listed it as an elbow bruise, and Rashawn is just going to be on the injury report every week this season. But
I don't know about every week, but at least until he's off the pitch count.
Yeah, but otherwise, relatively clean bill of health, and hopefully it'll continue to trend that way. But Joe, what's on your mind first off going into this game on Sunday?
Health. I know the rumor is, or I saw the tweet that the guy put out, per his sources, Bakhtiari is not going to play, but I'm not going to listen to it until it actually happens.
Yeah.
Jenkins is most likely a 2 to 4 week injury, they're saying. Lucas actually, and I didn't realize it until I think it was Andy Herman pointed it out, that Lucas actually went back in to the Falcon game late. He just was wearing the elbow brace, so it must just be like a hyperextension or whatever, where it's not like a major concern. Yeah. And Rashawn, like I said, he's going to be on the limited and on the list until he's off his pitch count. But like you said, good news that Watson is working out more. I saw him some of the videos where he was actually running and he had the sleeve on the leg, so hopefully the compression sleeve can help out a little bit and put him on a pitch count, because it's really going to be all, they're going to need everybody that they can out there on the field for the offense, because, even though it's starting to get to be an older defense, the Saints defense is pretty good. You got Marshawn Lattimore that I guess was saying that the Packers fans disrespect him or something, or NFL disrespects him or whatever. And then which one is it? It's Cam Jordan has always been a dominant force. So they've got the guys on defense that they're going to need everybody they can get. And if both Bakhtiari and Jenkins are out, then, that's going to really hinder a lot of the stuff the Packers can do. But, as long as Watson can return, and maybe even a short amount of Jones, it's going to help out tremendously. This is the first time. Well, no, I don't have to say what. This is the first time the Packers have faced the Saints at home since 2017. Let's hope they have a better game than they did that game. I was actually there in 2017.
Ooh. What was that? That was the first Hundley week, I think, right?
Yeah, and it really sucked because I had bought my ticket early on in the year, like during training camp or something, and then the Vikings game happened. Rodgers' collarbone broke. I paid like $250 for the ticket, and after his collarbone broke, you were getting tickets for like $100. And then it was a miserable day. It was the temperature was colder, but it was humid. So even if you had and it had just rained a little bit. So even if you had on a coat for the colder temperature, you were sweating to death because the humidity was hitting you. So and then to have Hundley go out there and just be a friggin' a lump. I think he had 0 touchdowns and 1 interception on like 107 yards or something like that. Now, it was an Aaron Jones breakout game. He went for 120, I think, 120 plus. but that was horrible. So I'm really hoping that this game will be a lot better than that one.
Yeah, weather-wise, that's here without the cooler temperature. That's how it is in the spring. It rains and it's still 80% plus humidity. So
Yeah.
used to that. But no, yeah, like you said, this Saints team. So I know it's early in the season, but DVOA is the advanced stat that I do prefer to use. I think it does a good job of representing. Um, it does a good job of ranking the teams in terms of their overall on-field efficiency and proficiencies. So Green Bay is actually, ironically, doing well on DVOA, even defensive DVOA. So for reference, Green Bay is sixth overall in total DVA. They are sixth on offense and 11th on defense, which after you watch last week's game, it's like, yeah, I know it's some early season noise and stuff, but it's still impressive to see them ranked that high. And I bring that up because they are playing the ninth overall ranked team in the Saints this week. Uh, their offense is a paltry 21st, but they are fourth on defense. And like you said, that does speak to the skill that is still on that defense. I couldn't name who their linebackers are if you had a gun to my head right now. But like you said, Cam Jordan is still the centerpiece of that defense. And their
One of
secondary,
them's
though,
Pete Werner, isn't it?
I believe you might be right.
So, I can name one and you can't.
Yeah, Quan Alexander. but the secondary is young. Lattimore, I think, is the oldest player now at like 27, and then Paulson Adebo is the other corner, and he's a third-ish year player at this point. So the Green Bay, it's gonna be, like you said, it's gonna be another measuring stick game for multiple parts of the roster, just in terms of for the offensive side. Um, that secondary is going to be a test. You got Adebo and Lattimore. It'll be interesting to see if Watson's back, who covers who, because they are more of a man match team. And it'll be interesting to see if they use Lattimore on Watson or if they kind of let Adebo go and cover Watson, since he'll likely be limited, and they'll let Lattimore cover Dobbs, who watching the film back last week, Dobbs I thought had a pretty good game. He was open more than he was targeted. He actually had some really good reps against AJ Terrell, and it'll be interesting to watch how the refs call this game, because they let Terrell get away with Legion of Boom level of contact and holding on the back end. And it's one of those where it's not a complaint. It's just more, as long as they're consistent with it, so be it. The Green Bay receivers have to figure out how to deal with it. And that's just part of the learning curve for these guys. But it was good to see that Dobbs kind of got a full complement of snaps last week. And he's not even on, he's a guy that's not even on the injury report going into this week. So that's a good sign for Green Bay. Like you noted, that O-line, we're not going to know what the configuration is going to be. It would be really good for the team if Bach is able to get out there this Sunday, but just going under the assumption that he's not ready to roll this week, I think they're going to roll with Rasheed Walker at left tackle. I know that they rotated last week, but what's your thought on that? I thought it was partly because it was a road start in a dome, but I wasn't a really big fan of that against Atlanta.
I'm not a fan of rotating it, period, because there's no continuity to it. You've just got to roll with your punches. Now, if they wanted to do like half by half, but not like every other play, if they wanted to play like the first half with Walker, second half with Nyman, hey, go for it, but not rotate back and forth, because like I said, there's no continuity to it. And you're gonna, in my opinion, and I'm an untrained person, I'm just a guy watching, and but common sense tells me that your quarterback's not going to be able to get into rhythm, because he's going to get used to one guy, then he's got to jump to the next guy, and then back and forth, where, okay, well, I know I'm protected over here, so I can do this. But now on this play, it's a little bit less likely that not saying that they're horrible tackles. Let's face it, Nyman's really stepped up as an undrafted free agent. Rasheed Walker, for being a 7th-round pick in his second year, has looked solid for what he's done. But he's still a young guy. He's still making some mistakes. It doesn't help when you put the revolving door of Royce Newman beside him. So it just I don't see the reasoning behind rotating your tackle like that. Now, if they really wanted to, in my mind, my configuration, I would probably slot, if you're going to use Walker, slot John Runyon beside him, then put Myers as your center, and then put the revolving door at right guard and Zach Tom at tackle. That way you have a little bit of balance there. You have uncertainty, certainty, whatever the fuck Myers is anymore, uncertainty, certainty. So, I mean, it's not like, okay, well, your whole left side is gone because we don't know what's happening. Or your whole right side is gone because we don't know what's going to happen. So I would, to balance things out, I would put good by bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm of the other mindset, and this is just being in some coaching rooms and stuff. And it sounds counterintuitive because I know a lot of people would go with what you said, where you try to spread the wealth in a sense. But what I've heard is that O linemen and quarterbacks actually prefer if you just put the unknowns on the same side, because then from like a play call and a protection standpoint, you can slide your protections to help kind of thing. You can send your back that way and stuff. So it's easier to send help when you're kind of not conceding, but you're understanding that one side, and it's a little spooky because it's your quarterback's blind side. But
well, that's what I'm thinking. It would be a lot different if we're saying, oh, well, Zach Tom's not very good and John Runyon's not very good, so we're going to slot those guys over there, because then Jordan can see it for sure coming. But we're talking the blind side, and I wouldn't mess with the blind side for nothing, because that's when you get knocked out.
Yeah. And I seen some people were asking if you would move Tom this week, and I said I wouldn't, but if they do, that's telling me something about what box injury outlook is moving forward, because I would think that, like you said, in the name of the game on O-line is continuity. So you do want to keep Tom and Runyon, next to each other, kind of keep those guys operating together, because they have done good things together. And then, whatever you do on the left side, I got into it with Perone a little bit, and we're kind of going back and forth. And, he said that he would start Newman because Newman is the devil, and Ryan is still a complete unknown in terms of play. But it's kind of like what we were talking about with, and we'll get into it with when we talk about the defensive side, but it's like we were talking about on the review show with Anthony Johnson Jr., where at some point you just got to see what you got, and we know exactly what Newman is. And to me, it's one of those, you put Ryan in and you see if the dude can sink or swim, and you don't got to wait that long to find out. I believe Sheldon Rankins is still one of the Saints defensive tackles. He's gonna get a healthy test early on in this game, so you're gonna find out if he can fight his way through it, or like you said, if he's a even faster revolving door than Newman is, which I have a hard time believing, honestly, at this point. So, and especially if Green Bay wants to get back to the run game, Ryan proved himself to be the much better run blocker in the preseason than Newman was. But that's one of those, we can project, prospect, whatever, put the tea leaves down, but we're not going to know until they roll out with the Sunday, the pregame warm up. So that'll be one of those, we'll see when we get there kind of things. But it is something that does need to be earmarked for the game, because like we said, they're going to move Cam Jordan up and down that defensive front. And the big thing that Dennis Allen likes to do is he likes to simulate pre-snap that double A gap shot, that double A gap look that you used to see like Jim Johnson's defenses, the Urlacher and Briggs Bears defense used to do it a lot, especially because Jenkins is likely out, and then you're probably getting Walker starting at left tackle. So it's a lot of pre-snap communication, and New Orleans is going to want to see what Green Bay does on third down. So it's really important to get good yardage on first and second down this week to stay out of third and long, because Allen is going to light up this O-line with a bunch of weird blitzes this week. You can count on that.
Rankins is not with the Saints anymore. He's with Houston.
Duck.
But I mean, that doesn't mean they have any less of a challenge there, because they've still got Isaiah Foskey, Carl Granderson, Cam Jordan. I have no idea how to pronounce his name. Kyle Phillips, Malcolm Roach, Brian Brees, Kalen Sanders, Nathan Shepard. I guess I can try it. Tano Capasano.
Capisano, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Onyemata was one of their bigger what's it called, free agent ads this offseason. So they've got some skilled players up front, and
their defense is going to be tough. This is going to be their big test.
Yep. Brian Brzee, old friend Jack Heflin.
I think he's practice squad.
But so they're going to present some challenges for Green Bay, and like I said, it's going to take a lot of pre-snap discussions and awareness to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Just because you don't want to see plays like that one on the third down in the second drive where Walker is sliding out too far and just lets someone come right up the B gap and just has a beeline on Love. So those are the kind of mental errors that they got to iron out this week, because guarantee that Dennis Allen saw that on tape this week. So got to shore that up.
As you know, Jason Perrone, I love you, man. You're really, really ridiculously good looking and all that. But I'd side more with Kawano than I would that, because Newman is the devil, you know, but we also saw in the preseason that Sean Ryan was putting up better reps than Newman was. So if this is just going to be a test year anyway, and you're just going to run with what you got, you might as well throw him out there and, for a game or two. This isn't, you would have rather thrown him out there for the Bears or something, but you got to do it. And, like we're going to talk about here in a few, Anthony Johnson Jr. needs to be out there. I'm tired of the Rudy. Rudy, solid special teamer, thumper, probably is better suited for that hybrid linebacker safety role than actual safety. But, you might as well throw what you got out there. If Bakhtiari can't go, Jenkins isn't going to be out there. You've got to throw what you can out there, and you can't let Jordan get killed. And Newman is going to get Jordan killed. I still have no idea why he is on the roster. He's got to have like naked pictures of Gutekunst or something that. And I don't know. And I love Brian Gutekunst. He's been a great GM since he's been here. Some people are going to say, oh, well, he didn't do this right and he didn't do that right. But I think he handled everything as well as he could. But for some reason, it's that old Ted Thompson way where they just hang on to the guys that they shouldn't be hanging on to. And Newman is that guy.
Yeah. So, like we said, we can only hope that they'll go with the youth movement. And like you said, bridging it over onto the defense, it'll be a big test for our secondary this week, because New Orleans is going to roll in. Granted, Derek Carr is the quarterback, but he's still going to hit open guys. And Chris Olave and Michael Thomas are two guys that can get open. Thomas has looked a lot better so far this season than I thought he would after coming off of his basically 2 years of weird ankle injury and just not playing football basically for, over 700 days. And Olave has translated every bit as well as you could have imagined coming out of Ohio State into the NFL. And I'll be curious to see if they do match up this week. I kind of want them to, because you don't want Rasul, whether it's in zone or in match zone, on Olave. That's just not the kind of player that he's good against. I know that you can't go man every play, or like you can't match every play, because they're going to move him around, put him in the slot and stuff like that. But for as much as possible, I think it'll behoove Barry to keep the cross matches as in Green Bay's favor as they like. And moving back to safety, like you said, I think we both agree that it's time for the Ford experiment to end, and just roll with what you got at with Anthony Johnson Jr., because he's at the point where mental reps aren't going to do him any good. You just got to start putting stuff on fit. He's just got to be out there and just learn on the job.
And I could understand, like we've said before, I could understand when he was on the injury report. If he's dealing with a little ticky-tacky injury, don't force him to go out there. But now he's off the report. Now, he's theoretically fully healthy. There should be no reason. And he can play special teams too. He's raw. He's got talent. And is it better? I know it's that whole, like Perone said with Newman, the devil but the devil is getting the hell beat out of him. You might as well go with the one that you don't know, because you don't know how he's going to react to it. He could be.
No, you're right. And the thing with Ford is, it's like last year we were at least getting really good tackling from him, and you haven't so far. I know it's only 2 games and stuff, but he's gotten juked and runned over and roadkilled a couple times. And like you said, he probably is better off in that like Raven Green mold, that Raven Green role that they had under Pettin and stuff. But playing deep safety, it's not something that fits him. So yeah, just get Johnson out there, let him play the high pivot safety, and that'll let you get Savage kind of more into that pseudo nickel role where he has been better playing as well. So I think it just puts the whole secondary in better positions to produce. And like I said, they're going to need it this week, because New Orleans always has a lot of firepower in their special their specialty positions. But what does help Green Bay is Alvin Kamara is still serving his PED suspension. I believe this is the last week, but whatever week it is, it doesn't matter. He's not playing against Green Bay. And unfortunately, old friend Jamal Williams pulled his hamstring in the Monday night game, and all reports are that he's not going to make it back for this week. And even if he is, he's going to be in a diminished role. So that does help. But obviously, the big thing for Green Bay is that they're going to have to man up and put Carr in 3rd and long situation, because that's where he's always faltered as a quarterback. But you have to get him there, and you got to do the dirty work to get to 3rd and long. And they didn't do it last week in Atlanta. So it's a new week, and time to do better. There's no real other way to put it. You just got to do better this week.
There's no doubt. And especially at home. I mean, you can't go out and lay an egg at home. Well, I mean, you can, but you don't want to go out and lay an egg at home. You want to go out and for your home opener, and you want to give the fans a show. I'm really looking forward to this game just to see how everybody handles the home game. Not only the players, but the fans, because it's a new era. This is the first game in Green Bay that Jordan Love's led the team. So it's going to be interesting to see the kind of reaction he gets coming out. I mean, it should be positive. I don't think anybody's going to give him, theoretically they're going to give him shit, but you never know. People are fickle.
Just in relation to when Rodgers took over, you think of what the situation in training camp was like, and Rodgers was getting booed in training camp and at family night, whereas Love has been, not universally, but it's been a lot different tenor for Love as opposed to what Rodgers dealt with. So you, like you said, you can never tell, but you'd like to think that it'll be a much more even. And look, I bring that up because by the time week one came, everyone was cheering for Rodgers, and you figure just on where they were at the same check marks they've hit, that Love is going to get, that home cooking and that favorable home crowd reception. So, but yeah, it'll be kind of interesting to see. Is he under control, or does he come out a little bit too wound up, too hyped and stuff? So, never know when it's that first home cooking, the first home game that you're like the starter for. So, like you said, lots to watch out for on that side of it too.
Definitely. And I'm looking forward to see how Jair rebounds after the Falcons game, because I mean, he was doing well and then all of a sudden it just went away. So what was the reason why it went away? So it's going to be, like you said, a real test with Olave and Thomas, but it's I think you could easily put Razul on Thomas. I think Razul's got that to him that
Yeah.
he could handle Thomas. But, this is where I wish we had Eric Stokes back, because Eric Stokes had the speed that he could keep up with almost everybody. Jair's got the speed that he can almost keep up with everybody. And I want to put this out there. I've seen people post this, and I heard a couple other people talk about it. Jair would have had a pick six easily. That drop he had, I know they're saying, oh, well, there was a guy there and all that. Jair, with the momentum he had and the type of speed he has, he easily could have had a pick six.
Yeah, no, that receiver in the flat was like still half running a route and kind of looking for the ball. So I think Jair picks it, and he might have to juke that guy at some point, but his path was pretty clear down the sideline. And I think, you can't get into the psychology of it, but it probably, missing that play, and then especially when your offense doesn't score a touchdown, we only got a field goal out of it. It does kind of wear on you, as opposed to like Quay's one where Quay dropped the interception coming out of the half, but Green Bay still came down and scored a touchdown anyway. So
yeah,
it doesn't sting as much, kind of thing.
Well, and Quay's seemed like it was like, I didn't know it was coming to me until it came to me.
Yeah.
Whereas
I think Jair's a little bit too, because
Jair had it read, because at least he broke on the ball to make the play. Whereas Quay,
I don't think he thought he could reach it. I know what you're getting at, though, because he was jumping for it, and I think it caught him by surprise that he was like, "Oh, it's not that high. I've like got it in my hands," kind of thing and stuff. So,
and kind of the thought, "Oh my God, they threw it at me again."
Yeah, because it was almost the same play that he made last week in week one, I should say. So, yeah.
But no, it's like I said, I want to see how the defense rebounds. And this is another thing a lot of people have been bringing up. Joe Barry wasn't as bad as people are making it out to be against the Falcons. That's true. But in my eyes, and again, I'm not an expert. I'm not going to break down games and anything. But with what I was seeing, it looked like, he had a solid game plan and it was working for the first few quarters. But then it looked like he was struggling to adjust when Atlanta just started throwing shit at the wall and hoping something stuck.
No, absolutely. Joe Barry, and this is one of those things with especially older defensive coordinators. They have their identity and they do not like to bend away, especially when, in Barry's case, his defense hypothetically is built to play with a lead, and it's playing smaller sub package units, getting more athleticism so you can rush the passer. But he was too slow to adjust in my eye. People were like, "Oh, there were missed tackles, missed assignments. Jair dropped the pick six," but when you walk out there with undermanned fronts because you want to play sub package against 13, 3 tight end personnel groups and leave your defense out leveraged, it's like you're just asking for trouble. And by the time he made adjustments, it was too late. Bijan and that O-line were in a rhythm, and the floodgates were open at that point, and you weren't sticking the genie back in the bottle at that point. So
right, and you said it yourself. Bijan was hitting his stride. Well, that right there shows you that Barry was struggling to adjust, because we were even getting Devondre Campbell covering Bijan Robinson. Now, I love Devondre, He's an athletic backer, but when you put Bijan Robinson out there in the flat, you've got to have somebody else than a linebacker covering him. I mean, if you're going to put a linebacker, put Quay out there because, Quay's quicker and that than what Devondre is. But that's when you need to move. And I hate to say it, but at least he would have been able to hit him, Rudy Ford out there to, cover Robinson. So that's what I mean. It just, he had a great game plan. And of course, the defense was wearing down because the offense went stagnant in the second half, but it's the adjustments. And that's what's going to hurt him in this game. Is Joe Barry going to be able to adjust to anything that the Saints throw at him?
Yeah, that's a big one. It's just a big bounce back game all around because, like you said, it's not their fault, but it's also not totally their fault in that the offense sat for so long because Barry's defense couldn't get, the offense goes up 24-12. I think there's like a minute left in the third quarter, let's say. And then Barry's defense can't get off the field for over 4 minutes of game time, which you add in the quarter changeover and all the crap that goes with it. That's like 30, 45 minutes of real time, and expecting your first time starter quarterback on the road to, cold start your offense is asking a lot in that scenario. So just all around, bounce back for everyone, bounce back for the defense, Barry, LaFleur managing the clock, the pre-snap clock situation, all those kind of things. It's the frustration with last week's game is it was the adults in the room who let go of the rope. Much as
I mentioned this in the Lombardi Bar chat room or the chat during their stream, that we had LaFleur go out and be super progressive with the flea flicker that he had. And, the Jaden Reed touchdown and stuff like that. But then in the second half, when they're up, he goes the other way and goes super, super conservative. And it's like, you're not playing to win. You're playing to not lose.
Which always means you're playing to lose.
Right. So, I mean, this is the same issue that we've been having with the Packers forever, is they can never play a complete game. They only play half a game. If they play a shitty first half, they play an amazing second half, and, or it's the other way. And it's like, you guys got to play complete. The Bears game, in a way, was a complete game, but you also got to take a look at the team that the Packers were playing. It was the Bears. They're, we can mention that a little bit. They're in a complete, meltdown right now. Their defensive coordinator resigned. The Justin Fields is calling out the coaching, and, who knows what's going on. I even saw a joke tweet that
we won't get into that because the allegations that were made in that tweet, they were just really, really bad.
No, I'm talking, I saw a joke tweet where the per sources, the owner of the Bears was going to transfer the Bears to the XFL starting in 2024. And it's like, so long story short, the Packers weren't playing the best team there is. Now we're going to be playing, we played the the Falcons. They weren't the best team, but they were a better team. Now we're playing the Saints, who are a better team. We're like progressing. So we went from sucky team to all right team to decent team.
It's a good team. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to see how the Packers can handle the progression.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see how they handle it, but it is good that they're playing at home. But we're going to start to bring this one to a close tonight. So we're going to get to some of our projections for the game. We have our yes-nos for the week. So Christian Watson, Aaron Jones, yes or no for either or both playing?
Watson, I'm going to say yeah, but I think he's on a pitch count. They're going to rotate him in slowly just to see how the hamstring handles. I imagine he's going to probably be a game time decision unless something happens on the injury report on Friday where they, either take him off or he's full participation or whatever. So I imagine he's going to get a few snaps. Um, Jones is a 50-50. I think it's going to be a game time uh, uh, decision, but I think it's going to go either way. He sounded like he was doing a little bit more work today in practice, but still wasn't fully participating. Um, so it's gonna be close. But if I had to choose between the two of them, I think Watson's gonna play and Jones will probably sit. But again, it's gonna depend on how the Friday practice looks.
Yeah, but hey, that's why we're making these projections now, because it's so up in the air. But I'm with you. I think Watson is going to play, and I think that Jones is out another week. Especially with next week being the short week into a Thursday night game. I think they kind of just play it cautious with Jones and try to have him for a divisional game next week against Detroit, because it'll be a short turnaround. So move on to your over unders. So on the Packers side of the action, Joe, over under Jordan Love at 225 passing yards.
Um, I'm trying to think. I don't think he's hit over the 225 mark yet. I think he went close in the Bears game, but he was definitely under in the Falcons game. But I think if Watson is there, they're going to hit at least one deep bomb. And I think it'll put him over the 225. So I'm going to take the over.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over too, just because I don't think they're going to. It's kind of curtailing into another one of your over unders, but I think they're going to see similar production on the ground as they did last week. But I think they hit on some of those plays where they got DPI yardage last week. So I think he'll hit over on over 225. Week one, he was over 225. He had 245. So yeah, he has been over that.
So I'm going to take over the over-unders because these are mine, Kawano. I'm
not a betting man. Go for it.
Well, I'm not a betting man either, but when Nick and I were doing it, I got pretty damn close with my over-unders. So, I'm kind of rusty since this is still the start of the season, but I think I'm going to do pretty good with it. So my next one is Jair Alexander over under half a interception. He's been super close so far twice this year. No, he had the one in the Bears game, and he dropped one in the Saints game. So no, right? Did
So
he
you
have
think
the
of
one?
last year's Bear game? No, it was only
Or was it Razul that had it in the?
No, Razul had the first one in the Falcons game. Only Quay picked off Fields this year.
Okay, so yeah, but I think he was close to one. I think
Yeah,
he's
he was
been
close.
close.
Yeah,
I think he's been close to one both games. So
yeah,
he's due. He's got the talent for it, but for some reason he just can't hang on to it. So over under half an interception.
yeah. I'm going under, just because I get the feeling that they're gonna just pound passes to Michael Thomas, and I think Razul is gonna be covering Thomas. So I don't know how many opportunities Jair is gonna get to get his hands on one.
I'm gonna take the over. Like I said, it's due. I mean, he's been so close so many times. It's due. So that one's an easy one for me. I definitely take the over on that. So my next one is Rashawn Gary, 1.5 sacks over under. Um, he's going to be start ramping up because he's getting the game time, in hand. I think he definitely played more snaps against the Falcons than he did the Bears. So I see, unless there's a setback, see him taking even more snaps against the Saints. So what do you think? 1.5 sacks for Rashawn Gary?
I say under just because I think they're going to have him on Ramczak, the right tackle. He's still a really good pass blocker. And I think they're going to, because I don't remember him flipping sides too much this past game, but if he does get more reps against Penning, screw it. I'm going with the over.
I just think the edge, well, Ignagberry had kind of a rough game against the Falcons, but it just feels like the pass rush is really hitting their stride. You know, I think my boy Lucas is really starting to get comfortable. Rashawn, like I said, his snaps are going up. Preston is doing Preston things. Even Justin Hollins is in there getting pressures. I think I'm going to go the over too. It might be optimistic of me to go over, but I'm going to do it just because I think there's going to be enough opportunity there with, and this isn't saying the Saints have a bad O-line. I just think right now what the Packers are offering with pass rush is just, it's going to be impossible not to get multiple sacks this game. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one. I'm trying to think. I think of if I want to keep it in or not, but I think I'm going to just go ahead and do it. This one's disappointing to me, and especially if we're considering Aaron Jones isn't going to be playing, and that leaves this guy as the featured back again. I was really thinking about making a joke one for him to say over under 2.5 trips over himself. AJ Dillon, 45.5 rushing yards.
I'm going under. I just think they're going to have issues blocking up front, especially if Bach and Jenkins are both out this week.
I'm going to go under just because I don't think, period, AJ Dillon is going to hit over 45.5 yards. I think they could have the friggin' Hall of Fame O-line of the Lombardi era, and AJ Dillon is still not going to get 40.5 yards. So I'm going to go under on it. And I know I keep saying this, but it's not that I don't like AJ Dillon. I was excited for him when they drafted him. I think he has tremendous potential, but there's something not there clicking for him. And I have to repeat this with everywhere that I'm posting it. His pad level isn't there. His balance isn't there. His bowling ball tendencies aren't there. He's not driving a pile like he should be able to drive. There's something not clicking there, and I don't know what it's going to take to make it click. I don't know if we need to get somebody out there with like a newspaper and smack him in the back of the head every time he doesn't do what he's supposed to. I don't know if they need to like get like a pit bull or something to chomp on his ass and get him to go. I don't know, but something needs to happen because he's definitely not living up to all the hype that we thought there could be. My last Packer one, and I've got a couple of the Saints, but my last Packer one is 1.5 TDs for Reed. Jaden Reed. I mean, he's been amazing so far. You know, we were kind of hype on him when he was drafted. There was a lot of talk about how he was a basically JSN light, where he didn't have the pedigree, he didn't have the talk like JSN had, but he still was going to be able to do the things JSN did. And I think he's even outdid what the expectations for JSN were. So I really think this could be a multiple TD game for Reed. So I'm just going to go ahead and say I think it's over for 1.5. But what do you think, Mike? 1.5 TDs for Jaden Reed?
I think under just because I think we're going to see Musgrave get his first career touchdown. And I think I just think there's going to be more targets to spread the ball around to. and they might score from farther out. Whereas I think Reed is their down in the red zone guy. So just get the feeling that we're gonna see. I think Love will still get like 2 to 3 touchdowns, but I think they're going to be more spread out, even more spread out this week.
Oh, I agree that the ball's going to get spread more, but I just have this feeling that Reed has the ability to get himself open, that he's just going to, be out in the flat or do like a curl or something, get the catch and immediately juke out his defender and be gone, because he's got that he's not like a Christian Watson fast, but he's got speed to him. So that's my thinking behind it, is I think he's gonna he's gonna break a tackle and just bust it. But so I'm only gonna do a couple of these Saint ones. 2.5 sacks for the Saints defense overall. Everybody on this, so it could be like a corner rush, it could be a safety blitz, it could be an edge rusher, it could be a tackle, but I set it kind of low because Jordan Love is a little bit more mobile than what Rodgers was. So 2.5 sacks for the Saints defense.
I think under. I think they might get 2, but I don't think they'll get more than that.
It hurts, but I'm going to go over and slightly over, because I have a feeling that you're going to get that first initial hit, and then you're going to get a couple of the fluke sacks where, there's going to be like a bobbled snap from Myers or something, and it allowed a rusher to get in, or, some kind of, or, Love rolls out and doesn't get the ball out of his hand in time for the corner or a safety to hit him. So I think there's going to be a few fluky sacks, but I'll take the slightly over. And the last one I'm going to do, and this one is kind of a jokey one, but it's also a serious one, because like we mentioned earlier, Kamara's out, Jamal's out. I know who's the one that's just coming back, Kondre
Miller.
Yeah. So they're not going to be completely bare at the running back position, but they're definitely going to need all the help they can get at the running back position. And this guy's still on their team as a gadget player. I know he's on the injury report with I think a knee injury, so he might not get a ton, but over under 45.5 rushing yards for Taysom Hill.
I think under. I think he's mostly going to be a red zone guy, and I don't think he's going to have the ability to get. He might run laterally 45.5 yards, but I don't think he'll record that many in the stat book.
I don't know, man. I really don't, because I don't feel comfortable taking the over, so I'm probably not going to take the over. And I set it a little high just because it was a more of a jokey over under. But I have this feeling that they're going to do something weird because they're down running backs, and whether that's Jameis come out and run like a wildcat for a couple plays, or Taysom comes out and is running like flea flicker style plays. They're going to get really innovative with their offense because of their lack of running backs. So I'm going to go under, but it wouldn't surprise me at all with the way things are going if he went like for 150 yards or some shit like that.
So that's going to wrap up our preview for week 3. As usual, mahalo for joining us on this week's Ohana Packers Edition podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Kawano Mike and Joe at Iowa_Joe86. Find the show at Ohana_Packers. New episodes are dropping now every Tuesday and Thursday, except when the team plays on oddball nights, and we'll adjust the preview accordingly. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Give us a like if you're enjoying what you're hearing. Also, please do leave us a review. Hoping for a good opener for the Packers this season. It's week 3, baby. Go Pack, go, and aloha.